Hey guys, Jonathan Rice here. Today we're going to be talking about a couple different payment platforms that you guys, as small business owners, may use in order to take online payments, ACH payments, credit debit card payments. These payments can be made through your online store, at your physical retail location, or if you have like a satellite location like a food truck or like a pop-up. These are some solutions for you to get paid. As an accountant, all I see is money, money, money. Cash is the lifeblood of any business. And in order to stay in business, you have to be able to pay your bills, pay yourself, pay your mortgage, pay the mortgage on the building for your business, pay your employees, pay your vendors. You have to be able to make all these payments. So in order to do that, first you have to get paid. And in order to get paid, you're going to need some type of payment processing vendor. So I have a short list here of some of the vendors that I have ran across that I think are some of the better ones and that I would recommend my clients to use. So the first one we're going to talk about, I have up on the screen, it's PayPal. Everybody's heard of PayPal. I think PayPal is most known domestically here in the United States, but it is also ubiquitous across the globe. PayPal is really good if you're doing foreign transactions and you want to cut down on exchange fees. You want to just plug it to your website. It's available via API or just like a little button that you can input on your website. And that makes it super easy to plug and play, essentially. But there are some drawbacks regarding PayPal. Typically, PayPal does have a slightly higher fee structure, usually around 2.9%, and then maybe a couple cents per transaction. So if you are a high volume vendor, PayPal is definitely going to take a chunk of change out of your pocket. But on the flip side of that, PayPal also takes all kinds of different payment methods. Your customers can ACH, they can use credit, debit cards. And one of the things that I think is worth noting about PayPal is that you can use PayPal credit. So, like if you're selling something that's really expensive, a couple $1,000s, and your customers say, "This is more of a luxury item. I may not want this right now." PayPal does offer the PayPal credit, in which your customers can then use that to buy whatever your luxury merchandise may be. So it can help justify it. A lot of times that's interest free. It's a good way to increase sales by including that as an option. All right, we have a new kid on the block. This is one I've been running into more and more called Melio. Melio I like because it offers very, very, very low fees to use the platform if you use certain payment types. And as someone who watches cash like a hawk, I'd stop to pick a penny up off the sidewalk if I can get away with something being free and the platform is usable, user friendly. I'm always going to try and get that free perk, that incentive. So Melio is nice because if you use ACH to pay or get paid, typically it's free. It may not be instantaneous like a wire transfer or next day like a debit or credit card payment, but as long as you have enough working capital to float your business on a day to day, what is another day or two? So I definitely like that option about Melio. It seems like more and more things nowadays cost a buck or two, so that is really refreshing to see. Other things that I like about Melio is that it can plug and play with QuickBooks. So anytime that we can save our poor bookkeepers or poor accountants a little work, I always lean towards that. So you can see right here on the home screen of Melio's website, there's an option here that says sign in with Intuit. So once you create your account, you link your bank account, stuff like that. You're going to be able to link Melio to QuickBooks Online, which is going to save a lot of bookkeeping. It's going to reduce errors. It's going to help with bank reconciliations. And so it's really nice that they do offer that plug and play API. Another reason that I think I've been coming across Melio more often is customers don't need to sign up. So if you are getting paid via Melio and that is your merchant processing vendor, your customers won't need to make one of those silly one-time use accounts because they want to buy something from you and then they forget that password 5 days later and they have to go fishing through the email inbox to find a confirmation. Melio just lets you check out as a guest. It's really streamlined, really efficient. And as somebody who doesn't like wasting time on making passwords and accounts and giving out my email to everyone, I really appreciate that. So the other thing is Melio is really good if you're a service-based or goods-based business. It's great for businesses that send invoices and want to look professional and send out a professional-looking invoice. Melio will allow you to do that. But some of the drawbacks are they do have slightly higher credit card fees. In my opinion, it's that 2.9%. Some larger processors, you can get away with 2.6%, 2.7%. You might be saying, well, Jonathan, what is 0.3% going to do to my bottom line? Are you comfortable passing on 0.3% to your customers? Because otherwise, you're going to be shouldering that cost of your net profit. And if that's okay with you, it's not really a big deal. But 2.9% as opposed to maybe some 2.6, 2.7%. So that is something to keep in mind. And then they're not really made for in-person payments at like a traditional website. Melio really focuses on being online, plug and play the websites, things like that. And so if you are running a storefront, it's probably not going to be the best payment processor for you. Moving on to our next contender, we have Square. We have Square. Stripe might come later. Square is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. If you've ever gone to a food truck and they pull out that little iPad and then they ask you for like a 47% tip on your $14 taco, you've probably seen Square. Square is ubiquitous because it is cheap. It's user-friendly. It has lower processing fees than a lot of the competition. You can get down to 2.6% if you're a new customer. If there's incentives or if you're doing a large volume of transactions, I have seen it where customers can get that lower rate. And it just works. There's not a lot of headaches with Square. Everyone's familiar with it. I think the reason that more people use it than some of these other platforms is because it's so easy to just plug and play. If you've got a phone, you can take payment via Square, whether it be tap to pay or if they'll send you one of those little credit card swipers. That's why they're everywhere. It just works. The other thing about Square is they have a pretty robust reporting dashboard. I have seen a lot of good data flow through for small businesses that would basically be for larger enterprises through the Square reporting dashboard. It tracks everything. It tracks product type, tracks sales types, tracks total sales, gross sales, net sales, sales tax, all that stuff. And that's just something that is more important in more small businesses than most small businesses owners realize until they start having questions on why they're not being profitable. What are my sales? Square holds it all, and it just gives it to you as part of using their service. So that is definitely one of the larger benefits of Square. One of the drawbacks of Square, though, is sometimes there can be delays on receiving your funds. Typically, it's next day, though sometimes it can be 2 business days, which is really frustrating if you are running a really tight cash business and maybe you need to make payroll. That 1 or 2 day delay can be really burdensome for like restaurants, for example. But overall, Square is pretty well-rounded. Anything from mobile vendors to online retailers to bookstores to guitar shops, stuff like that. You're not really going to have too many problems with Square. It's kind of like the catch-all. It's like QuickBooks for payment processors. And speaking of QuickBooks, it wouldn't be fair to talk about payment processors without talking about QuickBooks Banking, or QuickBooks Payments, I should say. So QuickBooks Payments is really only well-rounded for your business if you're already using QuickBooks. Intuit created this platform. Basically, it allows you to send out invoices directly to your customers. It looks professional. It's on a header with your business logo, contact information, types of payment details, things like that. And it gives a couple different options of how your customers can pay. And it's all right there in that invoice that you send to them. They click a button, takes them to the login page, and it tells them, how do you want to pay this guy? Me, for instance. And then you say, I want to use an ACH transfer. And then they put in their bank details, boom, money hits your account the next day. So Intuit's done a really good job of making sure that integrates with QuickBooks Online. It'd be kind of silly if their payment processing provider did not sync with their accounting service provider. So I've had 0 issues using QuickBooks Payments. I personally use it because I'm a professional-based firm. I'm a CPA firm. So it works really well for me. But if you are sending out tons and tons of invoices, like you are an online vendor or a restaurant, obviously this is not going to be for you. I have found that the best businesses that work for QuickBooks are service based. We send a couple invoices a month for a few $100,000. Not something where you're going to be doing several 10, 12, $15 transactions. It doesn't really work that well for that, in my opinion. Um, One of the pros of using QuickBooks is obviously its connectivity to the accounting software, but the ACH fees, if your customer is paying the ACH, is only 1%. It's pretty cheap. It's not as cheap as Melio, which is free, but it is cheap. The credit card fees are standard. They're 2.9 plus like 25 cents per transaction. Uh, but that's about it. It's pretty niche in my opinion. I wouldn't use it if I was running a storefront. It's really only for those companies that are sending out a handful of invoices who need to be able to trace it back to their accounting system. All right, the last guy that we have to talk today is one that is not as ubiquitous as Square or PayPal or Melio's. This is Stripe. So Stripe is well known in the accounting circle, but maybe not to small business owners. So Stripe it's really a behemoth. It might be one of the largest ones that we talked about today because it can be used by companies like Amazon or Bombas Socks or these really large multi-billion dollar companies who need their payments processed. So Stripe can be, look, it even mentions it on their website. Google, Amazon, OpenAI, they all use Stripe. So Stripe is like robust. It's for large companies, but if you're a small business owner, you can still use it. That's how scalable it is. And that's one of the pros of it is that it is extremely flexible. Despite it being meant for multi-million dollar business, you can still use it. But with that, some of the cons are unless you have a web development team or kind of tech savvy, it might be kind of difficult to set up some custom features, unlike PayPal, in which you can just cut your little snippet of code and stick it right in your website. Stripe may require a little bit more fine tuning. You might, if you're not an IT guy, you might find yourself pulling out your hair here and there. The other thing is with Stripe, if you're a small customer, you're not going to have great support whenever you have some of these behemoths in line ahead of you. If you're having issues with your payment processing, if you call Stripe and you only collect $100,000 a year, because you're a one-man show, don't expect them to rush to answer the phone. So, but it has a clean interface. It does do really well on its reporting dashboards. And if you are a decent sized business, a lot of times they'll give you a one-to-one sales rep for you to reach out to and say, hey, I'm having some payment processing issues. I have been the one to make those phone calls working with some healthcare clients. It's never a good phone call to make, but it does make you feel better when you have a dedicated support rep. So that is something that kind of differentiates Stripe a little bit. And then one of the other pros with Stripe is they take a ton of different payment options. Obviously, there's ACH, credit and debit cards. Most of the ones we talked about today take that. But Stripe also takes Apple Pay and Google Pay, which I think is pretty neat. And it gives your customers just one more way to pay. A couple other things about Stripe is that they do accept a wide range of currencies because they're so big. They can take euros or I'm not sure whatever other currencies people might use aside from the US dollar or euro, maybe like the Turkish lira, for example. And then because it is so customizable, if you do have a unique brand or you are a mid-sized business who's turning over millions and millions of dollars a year, it allows you to customize the plugin. And it allows for a very tailored experience. I mean, you can see here on the home screen just how savvy and how clean the infrastructure looks. So, and with that, you'll get some good reporting dashboards to help track your sales. It's sort of like Square in that basically any number under the sun, Stripe's going to be able to provide. So who is Stripe best for? Stripe is going to be best for online stores, app developers, subscription-based businesses, and really big business. So that's going to complete our roundup of some of the more popular payment processing vendors that I've run across. So in order to make the right choice on what the best payment processor vendor is going to be for your business, you have to kind of define your scope, narrow it down, and say, what do I want out of my payment processor? Do I just want the lowest fees possible? Do I want free? Check out Melio's. Do I want to customize everything to a T? Check out Stripe. Do I want it to be plug and play? I don't like computers. Computers don't like me. Maybe go with Square or PayPal. It all kind of depends on what you want out of the payment processing and then how it's going to fit your business's needs. So the only person who can answer that is going to be you. But I hope this did help narrow down your search and tailor your expectations to what these services can provide.